Good afternoon. I am sorry that I haven't recorded any chapters for a while, but for some reason I wasn't able to send messages anymore. Like it said the video was too long. So I used my Viking mind and I figured out how to upload them to YouTube. So we got this covered. Also, now that Maddie is reading a book as well, and actually she's reading one of my very favorite stories, I thought maybe I should step up my game a little bit and make this more interesting. Not that Merrylegs and Ginger, is that the name of the other one? Aren't interesting because I love horses. I've always loved horses. But just in case, this will grab your attention. We're ready for chapter 11 of Black Beauty. This chapter is called The Fire. And this illustration shows the long, heavy hills. One sunny afternoon, my master and mistress decided to visit some friends who lived about 45 miles away. The first day, James drove the carriage for 32 miles. There were long, heavy hills, but James drove so thoughtfully that we did not get very tired. He never thought to put on the brake as we went downhill or to take it off at the right place. We stopped once or twice on the road, and just as the sun was going down, we reached the town where we were to spend the night. We stopped at the inn, which was in the very center of the marketplace. It was a very large inn, and we drove under an archway into the long yard. At the end of the yard were the stables and coach houses. Two men came to meet us. One of them patted me on the head and led me to a stable. James stood by as we were rubbed down and cleaned. Much later in the evening, as I was resting in my stall, I heard a horse being led into the stable. As the horse was being cleaned, a young man with a pipe in his mouth lounged in the stable to talk with the grooms. After a few minutes, the groom asked the young man to put out his pipe and pitch some hay into the horse's rack. I heard the man step by me as he threw down the hay. Then the door was locked and we were left for the night. I have a feeling I know what's going to happen here. I don't know how long I slept or what time of night it was, but I woke up feeling very uncomfortable. The air seemed thick and I could hardly breathe. I'll show you the illustration of the silly, foolish man with a pipe in a stable of dry hay made out of wood. I heard Ginger coughing, and one of the other horses seemed restless. It was very dark, and I could not see a thing, but the stable seemed to be full of smoke. The trap door had been left open, and I could hear a soft rushing sort of noise and a low crackling and snapping. I began to tremble all over. The other horses were all awake. Some of them were pulling at their halters, and others were stamping at the floor. At last I heard someone coming. The groom who had brought the last horse in burst into the stable with a lantern. He began to untie the horses and try to lead them out, but he seemed in such a hurry and so frightened himself that he frightened me even more. The first horse would not go with him, so he tried a second and a third. They too would not leave with him. He came to me and tried to drag me out of the stall, but of course I wouldn't go with him. After he tried all the horses, he gave up and left the stable. Maybe we were very foolish not to leave, but we had no idea what was happening, and there was no one around whom we could trust. The fresh air had come in through the open door and made it easier to breathe, but the rushing sound overhead grew louder, and I could see a red light flickering on the wall. I heard someone outside cry, "Fire!" Then I heard James' voice, quiet and cheery as it always was. "Come, my beauties, it is time for us to be off, so wake up and come along." I stood closest to the door, so he came to me first and patted me on the nose. "Come, beauty, on with your bridle and we'll soon be out of all this," he said as he led me out of the flaming stable. Once we were out of danger and safe in the yard, he had someone watch me while he went back in to get Ginger. Oh, I think there's another illustration. There are the horses in the stall, afraid to come out because they don't know what's happening, just something bad. And whoever's trying to lead them out is like, "Ah!" And they don't trust him. I let out a shrill whinny as I saw James go back in. Later, Ginger told me that it was the best thing I could have done for her, for when she heard me in the yard, she had the courage to leave the stable. There was a great deal of confusion in the yard. Horses were being let out of other stables, and people were rushing around and shouting. I kept looking at the stable door, where the smoke poured out thicker than ever. Soon I heard my master's voice call out loudly, "James Howard! James Howard! Are you in there?" There was no answer, but I could hear a crash of something falling in the fire. The next moment I gave a loud, joyful neigh, for I saw James coming out through the smoke. He was leading Ginger. She was coughing a lot, and he was not able to speak. "My brave lad," said Master as he touched James' shoulder. "Are you all right?" Here's the picture of James leading Ginger out. Finally. James nodded his head, but he was still unable to speak. We left the town that same night. Everyone was quite upset. James said that the roof and floor of the stable had fallen in. The other horses that could not be let out were buried under the burned rafters and tiles. A horrible, horrible, sad thing. There's James driving the master and the mistress out of town. I would be ready to leave too after such a tragedy. So that was chapter 11. If you'd like to hear chapter 12, please continue.